Imagine you hire a business consultant, right?
Yeah.
Like you want them to rebuild your company's website. And halfway through wireframing the homepage, they just start helping you heal your childhood trauma.
Yeah, that sounds like a highly specific corporate joke.
It really does. Because usually when you look at the landscape of organizational development, there's this rigid, unspoken wall.
Right.
You have your efficiency experts over here, with their spreadsheets. They're optimizing your supply chain, writing standard operating procedures.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. And then completely walled off in another building, you have human resources or the wellness people talking about team building and feelings and preventing burnout.
Well, the industrial era really trained us to keep those domains quarantined from one another. We've just been taught to treat the mechanics of the business as one reality and the psychology of the people running it as a completely separate, almost inconvenient reality.
Yeah. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we have an incredibly revealing stack of sources in front of us.
We really do.
We are looking at the service menus, the core philosophy, and some highly detailed client reviews for a Wisconsin-based firm called Blue Collar Consulting, LLC.
And the mission here, for you listening, is to explore their totally unique approach to leadership development.
Right. We're using their model as a case study to explore a fascinating collision. What happens when you blend standard business operations with deep, trauma-informed psychology to fix broken company cultures?
It challenges the very foundation of how we measure workplace productivity. Because if you look at modern corporate environments, treating the human and the spreadsheet as separate entities is precisely why so many organizations are just imploding right now.
Okay, let's unpack this because there's a massive contradiction right at the heart of their source material.
Absolutely.
You look at their services and they help you build a high-impact website. They help you write standard operating procedures or SOPs. But then in the exact same breath, they specialize in deep personal coaching, emotional resilience, and something they call infusing humanness into the workplace.
That combination catches you completely off guard. I mean, it defies our traditional categorizations of what a consultant is supposed to deliver.
Exactly. And whether you are managing a massive corporate team right now, running a small startup out of your garage, or you just want to understand what makes a workplace actually function without making everyone miserable, this deep dive is essentially a masterclass in making company alignment stick.
Yeah.
But we have to start with the blueprint, though. We need to look at how marrying these hard operations with soft skills actually changes the brain of a leader.
Right, because to understand the psychology, we first have to ground ourselves in the tangible, foundational services they offer.
Right.
If you review their core offerings, you find leadership programs, professional coaching, cohort-based leadership development, and importantly, business development services.
And that last bucket is the concrete stuff, right? Like strategic planning, writing those SOPs we mentioned, staff training, and building professional websites. To see how this plays out, we can look at a very specific review from October 2025 by a client named Matt Rohan.
Yeah, that's a great example.
He talks about how his business had been growing for 3 years, and they hit that inevitable wall. They desperately needed to update their policies and procedures, and they needed a new website to, capture their vision.
And that is the classic growing pain for any successful small to mid-sized business. The sheer volume of operations outgrows the original infrastructure, leaving the founders just trapped in a reactive state.
Yeah, always putting out fires. So Matt brings in the blue-collar consulting team. Specifically, he mentions working with Brooke, Chuck, and Roe.
Right.
And they step in, they provide that vital structure, build a website the company's proud of, and make the business more efficient. But the tangible result Matt is most thrilled about isn't the website traffic.
No, it's not.
He says that, as owners, they have in return gotten so much valuable time back in their personal lives.
Gaining that personal time back is the linchpin of their entire methodology.
But I have to offer some pushback on this model, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Offering executive coaching alongside website development and SOP writing just feels highly disjointed to me. To put it in another context, it's like hiring a life coach who also happens to build your kitchen cabinets.
That's a funny way to put it, yeah.
Right. Why does one company need to do both? Why not just hire a dedicated web developer for the website and a separate leadership coach to deal with the founder's burnout?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying philosophy of cognitive load and operational stress.
Okay.
If we look closely at what this firm is actually doing, they recognize a fundamental neurobiological truth about leadership, which is that true development cannot happen if the operational house is on fire.
You can't meditate your way out of a broken supply chain.
You really can't. Let's look at the mechanics of cognitive load. When a founder or a manager is spending 14 hours a day putting out fires because there are no clear standard operating procedures, what a brain is constantly operating in a state of low-level threat. Their prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for empathy, long-term vision, emotional regulation, it's essentially hijacked by the immediate need to survive the day.
They're too busy boiling water to steer the ship.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And you cannot coach an executive to be an empathetic, visionary leader when their brain is flooded with stress hormones because their digital presence is broken and losing them clients.
Wow, yeah.
By fixing the digital presence and the operational structure, those hard skills, the consultants are actively clearing the cognitive runway.
That reframes an unwritten SOP entirely. I mean, it's not just an administrative oversight.
No, not at
The
all.
lack of an SOP is actually a form of constant low-level psychological stress for the employees who constantly fear making a mistake, and for the boss who constantly has to micromanage them.
That is a crucial realization. By building the kitchen cabinets, to use your analogy,
Right.
they give the brain a structured, predictable environment. Once that operational friction is removed, leaders finally have the mental bandwidth to focus on their people and their own personal growth.
So Matt Rohan didn't just get a website. He bought back his prefrontal cortex.
Yes, time and mental space are the absolute prerequisites for effective leadership.
So the structural house has to be in order before you can start doing the emotional renovations.
Exactly.
And once that operational runway is cleared, we transition into how they are coaching the people running these operations, which moves us into what is easily the most surprising differentiator in the source material.
The shift from the mechanical to the deeply human.
Right, because right on their website, they explicitly state their belief in infusing humanness into the workplace.
Yeah.
And when you dig into the reviews, specifically looking at cases like Taylor Hawk's experience with the Boys and Girls Club in 2022, you start seeing highly clinical terms pop up.
You do.
Reviewers constantly mention Chuck and Brooke being leaders in trauma-informed care, or TIAC, and they mention adverse childhood experiences known as ACEs and advocacy training. And, I mean,
Those are terms traditionally heavily guarded within the realms of clinical psychology or healthcare or social services.
yeah.
Seeing them applied to corporate business development is a radical departure from the norm.
And my question is, how does this not just open Pandora's box for HR?
Wow.
I mean, bringing trauma-informed care into a standard organizational structure seems risky. We expect people to be professional.
Sure.
How does looking at a 40-year-old middle manager's adverse childhood experiences actually translate into making a company run better?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, applying trauma-informed principles to corporate environments is not about turning managers into therapists.
Okay.
It is fundamentally about the mechanics of psychological safety. It's moving away from the industrial era model where an employee is treated as just a cog in a machine, expected to sever their personal history and emotional baggage the second they clock in.
Because biologically, they can't do that. You take your nervous system with you to the office.
Always. You can't leave it in the car.
Right.
Trauma-informed leadership recognizes that everyone brings their life experiences into the workplace. Let's take that 40-year-old middle manager you mentioned.
Okay.
Say they absolutely explode during a meeting because a minor deadline was missed. In a traditional corporate model, that manager is simply labeled difficult or, sent to an anger management seminar.
Or they just create a toxic culture where everyone walks on eggshells around them.
Exactly. But a trauma-informed lens looks at the mechanism behind the behavior.
Oh, I see.
A leader trained in these principles understands that a disproportionate reaction to a missed deadline might not be about the deadline at all.
Right.
It could be an amygdala hijack, which is a triggered fight-or-flight response stemming from an early environment where unpredictability or failure was heavily punished.
Wow.
By understanding this, leaders learn to manage the whole person, not just the worker.
So instead of reacting to the explosion, the system is designed to prevent the trigger in the first place, which goes back to the SOPs.
Yes.
If the procedures are clear, the unpredictability is removed, and the nervous system can stay regulated.
That is the brilliant intersection of their two services. The hard operations provide the boundaries, and the trauma-informed care provides the empathy within those boundaries.
That makes so much sense.
They foster environments where people feel seen and safe, And when people feel safe, their nervous systems regulate, allowing them to collaborate, innovate, and communicate effectively.
And you see the direct result of this in Taylor Hawk's review.
Yeah, the Boys and Girls Club one.
Right. Chuck trained the directors and part-time staff there on leadership, but he heavily integrated trauma-informed care and positive childhood experiences. Taylor wrote that the biggest takeaway from the presentation was the staff leaving with the mindset of, we get to do this work today.
Which is a profound psychological shift from a state of obligation to a state of privilege.
Yeah.
That only happens when a workforce feels emotionally supported and connected to a larger purpose, rather than just clocking in to survive a shift.
So we have the hard operational structure giving leaders their time back and the trauma-informed care giving the staff psychological safety. But we have to ask the hard question here.
Okay.
Business is still business. Does recognizing the humanness of employees actually impact a company's bottom line?
Well, any methodology, no matter how psychologically sound, eventually has to prove its worth in the metrics of the organization.
Right. And the source material addresses this head-on, specifically focusing on the ultimate silent killers of profitability, which are retention and burnout.
Absolutely.
There's an expansive, highly detailed review from December 2024 by a client named Dawn Brennan that serves as an incredible case study for how this plays out over time.
Dawn's experience provides a really clear window into the long-term mechanics of this dual approach.
She talks about Brooke and Chuck bringing in customized executive coaching, but she specifically highlights the implementation of what she calls the trauma-informed implementation curriculum alongside small group coaching sessions.
Yeah.
She notes these sessions fostered a sense of community, explicitly focused on well-being, and provided a safe space where the staff could address challenges without fear of judgment.
Which is the operational definition of the psychological safety we were just analyzing.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
In the middle of this very professional review about reduced frustrations and holistic approaches, Dawn drops in this highly specific, quirky detail. She says that months after the training ended, several of the staff still use the phrase, finding our blueberries.
Finding our blueberries. That phrasing is incredibly revealing.
Isn't it? The source material doesn't explicitly define what a blueberry is in this context. It's clearly a metaphor or maybe some kind of grounding exercise they learned during the trauma-informed curriculum. But the fact that an entire team adopted this shared vocabulary and relies on it months later, well, I mean, to me, that proves how deeply the training infiltrated their daily culture.
It acts as a neurolinguistic anchor.
Oh, what's that?
Well, when a specialized, slightly quirky vocabulary penetrates the daily vernacular of a team, it signifies a successful cultural shift. The blueberries phrase becomes a quick, mutually understood shorthand.
Right.
Instead of taking 30 minutes to explain that they are feeling dysregulated or overwhelmed, an employee can simply use the shorthand. It instantly signals to the rest of the team that they need a moment to ground themselves.
It's like an inside joke that fundamentally functions as a mental health tool.
Exactly.
And it bypasses all the corporate awkwardness of talking about feelings.
It really does. And the tangible results of instituting those kinds of anchors are profound. In that same review, Dawn explicitly states that the high turnover rate shifted. The firm helped them create a resilient workplace culture that promoted mental and emotional health, which actively prevented burnout.
They stopped the bleeding.
Yeah.
Like they stopped the endless cycle of hiring, training, and losing staff.
And this raises an important question. How many traditional businesses are suffering from massive turnover, constantly hemorrhaging talent and capital, simply because they ignore the neurobiology of their workforce?
Probably a lot of them.
We often hear executives complain about a recruitment problem or a talent shortage when, in reality, they just have a culture problem.
The classic metaphor is trying to fix a leaky pipe by just pouring more water into it.
Right.
But honestly, based on what we're looking at, it's more like a smartphone running 50 apps in the background.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, you can't just plug the phone into the charger to fix the battery drain. You have to open the system and force quit the background apps that are eating up the processing power.
Yes.
That operational stress, that unresolved workplace trauma, those are the background apps draining the company's energy.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. And force quitting those apps benefits the executives just as much as the entry-level staff.
Oh, for sure.
Consider the 2022 review from David Farnborough.
Okay, yeah.
He details how Chuck worked with him to refine his goals, identify priorities, and formulate action plans, which are the classic hard business skills.
Right.
But he emphasizes that Chuck also made sure he was looking after himself.
Making self-care a core component of the business strategy, not just some weekend luxury.
Exactly. And the mechanism behind that is clear in David's conclusion. He states, I have more self-awareness and greater business confidence as a result.
Oh, wow.
The self-care directly, causally correlated to his ability to lead with confidence.
It all feeds back into a single cohesive loop. Going through all these sources, from the Boys and Girls Club out to corporate offices, the through line is undeniable.
It really is.
You build the structure so the brain can relax. You acknowledge the trauma so the human feels safe.
It proves you cannot isolate the mechanics of a business from the biology of the people running it.
So what does this all mean? If we distill the core lesson from this stack of web pages, the service menus, and these deeply personal reviews,
Yeah.
it seems like this consulting model proves a point that the broader corporate world is still struggling to grasp. Prioritizing the mental, emotional, and trauma-informed needs of your employees isn't some fluffy, optional distraction from business growth.
No?
It is not a detour you take when HR complains.
Far from it. It is the very engine that makes sustained growth possible.
For you listening, whether you are trying to lead a boardroom, manage a retail floor, or organize a volunteer event in your community, addressing the human first is the ultimate strategy for operational success.
Absolutely.
You write the SOPs, you build the website, you define the roles, precisely so that the humans operating within that framework have a secure, predictable space to actually thrive.
It requires a powerful paradigm shift in how we view leadership, and it leaves us with something critical to consider moving forward. If a business lowers its turnover and actually becomes more efficient precisely because it makes space for the messy, trauma-informed humanness of its employees,
Yeah.
what does that say about the traditional stoic corporate models we've blindly accepted for the last century? Are we finally entering an era where empathy is no longer dismissed as a soft skill, but is recognized as the ultimate performance metric?
It really makes you wonder. I mean, if the old way of doing things was just sweeping all that human complexity under the rug until the organization collapsed, maybe the new way is finally learning how to build a better house to hold it all.
I think so.
It's not just about optimizing the spreadsheets anymore. It's about making sure your team has the space to find their blueberries.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.